We're diving into the fascinating world of 20 forgotten companies from the Roaring Twenties that left an indelible mark on our modern life. Number 1. Radio Corporation of America, RCA. Ever wonder why your grandparents called the TV the RCA? Well, it's time to tune in to the fascinating story of Radio Corporation of America. Back in 1919, the U.S. government was getting nervous. Why? Because foreign companies had their hands on the radio dial in America. That's when RCA stepped onto the airwaves as a government-backed monopoly, bringing radio under American control. RCA didn't just stop at dominating the radio scene. They quickly became the pioneers of the airwaves, shaping how we listen and watch media today. From setting up the first radio networks to bringing color to our TV screens, RCA was always one step ahead. They were the ones who made it possible for families to gather around the radio for their favorite shows, and later to watch the world come alive in living color on their television sets. Number 2. United Artists. Ever heard of a Hollywood rebellion? Well, back in 1919, while families were tuning into their brand new RCA radios, Tinseltown was about to experience its own shakeup. Picture this. 4 of the biggest names in silent films decided they'd had enough of playing by the studio's rules. Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and D.W. Griffith. These weren't just stars. They were supernova-level talents, and they were about to change the game forever. Fed up with the iron grip of studio control, these 4 legends took a massive risk. They formed United Artists, the first ever artist-controlled studio in Hollywood history. Can you imagine the uproar? It was like the inmates taking over the asylum, but with more glamour and better outfits. Number 3. Scholastic Corporation. While Hollywood was shaking things up, another revolution was brewing in the world of books. Remember those colorful book fairs that turned your school gym into a treasure trove of stories? Well, it all started back in 1920 when one man decided to change how kids got their hands on books. Maurice Robinson saw a big problem. Rural schools didn't have many good books. So he came up with a wild idea. Why not bring the books to the kids? Robinson kicked things off with a magazine for high schoolers. But that was just the beginning. Scholastic grew bigger and bigger, introducing book clubs that had kids begging their parents for spare change. By the 1980s, those famous book fairs were popping up in schools across America. Can you imagine the excitement? Suddenly, kids could browse through stacks of books right in their own school. But Scholastic didn't stop there. They brought us lovable characters like Clifford the Big Red Dog and even helped turn Harry Potter into a household name. It's pretty crazy to think that this company has put over 1 billion books into kids' hands since they started. That's a whole lot of reading. Number 4. Fisher-Price. Ever wonder how a small startup in the midst of the Great Depression became a toy-making giant? The story of Fisher-Price might just surprise you. Picture this. It's 1930, the economy's in shambles, and 3 folks decide it's the perfect time to start a toy company? Yep, you heard that right. Herman Fisher, Irving Price, and Helen Schell weren't just dreamers. They were visionaries with a mission. They believed kids deserved better playthings, even when times were tough. So they rolled up their sleeves and got to work, creating 16 wooden toys that would change the game forever. These weren't your run-of-the-mill playthings. Fisher-Price focused on what they called intrinsic play value. In other words, toys that were fun, clever, built to last, and wouldn't break the bank. It was a recipe for success that would shape how generations of kids played. Number 5. Ace Hardware. Think running a hardware store is all nuts and bolts? Think again. Back in 1924, a group of Chicago store owners cooked up a plan that would change the face of local retail forever. These savvy entrepreneurs were facing a big problem: how to compete with the growing threat of large chain stores. Their solution? Team up and create a cooperative. Enter Ace Hardware, the brainchild of these forward-thinking shopkeepers. By banding together, these small stores could enjoy the perks of bulk purchasing while keeping their local charm and independence. It's like having your cake and eating it too, but with hammers and nails instead of frosting. Number 6. Time Inc. Ever wondered why those glossy magazines in waiting rooms are so irresistible? Well, we've got 2 guys from the 1920s to thank for that. Henry Luce and Britton Haddon were just a couple of young bucks when they spotted a gap in the news market. Back then, if you wanted to stay informed, you had to wade through long-winded newspapers. But these fellas had a light bulb moment. Why not create a snappy, easy-to-digest news magazine? And just like that, Time magazine was born in 1922. It was a total game changer, folks. Americans could now get their weekly dose of current events without drowning in paragraphs. But Luce and Haddon didn't stop there. They went on to cook up a whole buffet of magazines that shaped how we saw the world. Number 7. The Walt Disney Company. Ever wondered how a cartoon mouse became a global phenomenon? Well, buckle up, because we're about to take you back to 1923, when a young dreamer named Walt Disney arrived in Hollywood with just $40 in his pocket and a suitcase full of ambition. Talk about starting from scratch! Walt and his brother Roy didn't waste any time. They set up shop right there in Hollywood, calling their little venture the Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio. But here's the kicker. Their first big hit wasn't the mouse we all know and love. Nope, it was a rabbit named Oswald. Yeah, you heard that right. But hold on to your hats, folks, because this story's about to take a wild turn. Just when things were looking up for the Disney Brothers, they lost the rights to Oswald in a contract dispute. Can you imagine? All that hard work gone in a flash. But Walt wasn't about to throw in the towel. No, sir. This setback turned out to be a blessing in disguise. In 1928, Walt created a new character, a little mouse named Mickey, and boy, did he make a splash. Mickey debuted in Steamboat Willie, one of the first cartoons with synchronized sound. Talk about revolutionary. Number 8. Caterpillar Inc. While Disney was busy creating cartoon magic, another company was gearing up to move mountains, literally. Ever wonder how those massive skyscrapers and sprawling highways came to be? It all started with a little yellow tractor that could. Back in the 1920s, farming and construction were backbreaking work. Imagine trying to build a dam with just shovels and pickaxes. But in 1925, something big happened. Two tractor companies, Holt Manufacturing and CL Best, joined forces to create Caterpillar Tractor Company. These folks weren't messing around. They wanted to change the game. And boy, did they! Caterpillar's first big innovation was a fully articulated tractor. Now, that might not sound exciting, but trust us, it was a game changer. This bad boy could turn on a dime, making it perfect for tight spots on construction sites and farms. Suddenly, jobs that used to take weeks could be done in days. Number 9. Zenith Radio Corporation. Ever wonder why you can change channels without getting off the couch? The answer lies in a Chicago basement in 1918. That's where Eugene F. McDonald and Carl E. Hassel started tinkering with radio technology, eventually founding the Chicago Radio Laboratory. Little did they know, their experiments would revolutionize how we experience media at home. As the Roaring Twenties kicked off, these radio enthusiasts were about to make some serious waves. In 1925, they introduced the first portable radio. Can you imagine the excitement? Suddenly, you could take your favorite tunes and news broadcasts with you wherever you went. It was like having a pocket-sized entertainment center. Number 10. Hilton Hotels and Resorts. Ever dreamed of owning a bank but ended up with a hotel instead? That's exactly what happened to Conrad Hilton in 1919. He walked into a Texas bank with dreams of becoming a banker, but walked out as the proud owner of the Mobley Hotel in Cisco. Talk about a plot twist. But Hilton wasn't just any hotelier. He saw potential in those booming oil towns of Texas and decided to make his mark. Remember the last time you checked into a hotel and cranked up the AC? Well, you can thank Conrad for that. He introduced air conditioning and cold running water in every room, luxuries that were pretty much unheard of back then. By 1943, Hilton was running 12 hotels across the country. He wasn't just expanding, he was revolutionizing the whole industry. Standardized room rates? Yep, that was Hilton. Consistent quality across multiple locations? You guessed it, Hilton again. Number 11. Quick Lock Corporation. Ever wondered about that tiny plastic clip keeping your bread fresh? It's time to uncover the tasty tale behind this humble hero of food packaging. Back in the 1950s, Floyd Paxton was flying home with a bag of apples when inspiration struck. How could he keep his snack fresh after eating a few? Little did he know, his solution would revolutionize the way we store our food. Paxton's family had been in the packaging game since 1924, so he knew a thing or two about keeping things sealed. But this time, he came up with something truly special, a simple plastic clip that could easily close and reopen bags. It was a game changer. This nifty little invention didn't just keep bread fresh, it became the go-to closure for all sorts of packaged goods. Number 12. BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation. Speaking of ideas that spread like wildfire, let's switch channels to a company that redefined how we consume information. What if I told you that 4 little letters changed the face of global communication forever? Get ready to explore the birth of the BBC and how it transformed the airwaves. Back in 1922, radio was the hot new tech on the block, but there was a big question mark hanging over it. Who was going to fill the airwaves with content? Enter the British Broadcasting Company, stepping up to the plate to provide radio broadcasts across the UK. This wasn't just any old radio station, folks. The BBC brought something special to the table, cooking up a mix of news, educational content, and entertainment that set the bar for broadcasters worldwide. Fast forward to 1927, and the BBC got a fancy new title, the British Broadcasting Corporation. This wasn't just a name change, though. It was the start of something big. The BBC began to stretch its wings, reaching further and speaking louder than ever before. They became the voice that millions tuned into, not just for the latest news, but for a dose of reliable, impartial reporting that folks could trust. Number 13. Walgreens. Ever wonder how a single drugstore became a cornerstone of American healthcare? Well, grab your shopping list. We're about to explore the Walgreens story. Back in 1901, Charles R. Walgreen Sr. took a leap of faith and bought the Chicago drugstore where he worked. But why? He saw an opportunity to shake things up in the pharmacy world. Walgreen wasn't content with just filling prescriptions. He wanted to create a whole new experience for his customers. And boy, did he deliver. Walgreen introduced in-store soda fountains, turning his pharmacy into a community hotspot. Imagine popping in for your meds and staying for a fizzy treat. But that wasn't all. He also rolled out his own line of drug products, giving folks more options and better prices. Number 14. Marvel Mystery Oil. Ever wondered why some classic cars from the 1920s still purr like kittens? The secret might be hiding in a mysterious little bottle. Back in the Roaring '20s, a young mechanic named Bert Pierce noticed something odd. Some engines just ran better than others, and he couldn't figure out why. So he did what any curious gearhead would do. He started tinkering. Pierce cooked up a special oil additive in his garage, hoping to give engines a boost. Little did he know, he was about to start an automotive revolution. This magic potion, which he called Marvel Mystery Oil, quickly caught on with local mechanics. They couldn't explain why it worked so well, but boy, did it make a difference. Word spread like wildfire through repair shops and among car enthusiasts. Suddenly, everyone wanted to get their hands on this mysterious oil. Engines ran smoother, lasted longer, and performed better. It was like giving your car a secret superpower. Number 15. Hasbro. Ever thought about how some of your favorite childhood toys might have started with pencil cases? Back in 1923, two brothers, Henry and Hillel Hassenfeld, looked at a pile of leftover fabric and saw opportunity. But what could they possibly create that would lead to Monopoly and My Little Pony? Well, they started small with Hassenfeld brothers crafting pencil boxes and cloth pencil cases. Who knew these humble school supplies would pave the way for playtime revolution? As the years rolled by, the Hassenfeld brothers gradually shifted their focus to toys. In 1952, they introduced a spud that would become a household name, Mr. Potato Head. This veggie-inspired toy became a big deal, and it was just the beginning. The company kept growing, and in 1984, they made a move that would change the game, literally. They scooped up Milton Bradley, adding a treasure trove of beloved board games to their toy chest. From those fabric scraps to fantasy worlds, Hassenfeld brothers transformed into Hasbro, one of the biggest names in toys. They've shaped playtime for generations, filling toy boxes with everything from G.I. Joe action figures to colorful ponies. So next time you're walking down the board game aisle or playing with a My Little Pony, remember, it all started with a couple of brothers and some leftover fabric. Talk about playing your cards right. Number 16. Nestle Toll House. From toys to treats, some of the best inventions come from unexpected places. Ever wondered why chocolate chip cookies have those perfect little morsels? Get ready for a sweet surprise that'll make you see your cookie jar in a whole new light. Back in the 1930s, Ruth Wakefield was whipping up a batch of cookies at her Toll House Inn. But oh no, she was out of baker's chocolate. Instead of throwing in the towel, Ruth got creative. She chopped up a Nestle semi-sweet chocolate bar, figuring it would melt and spread through the dough like her usual recipe. But sometimes, the best plans go deliciously wrong. When Ruth pulled those cookies out of the oven, she discovered the chocolate bits hadn't melted at all. They kept their shape, creating little pockets of gooey goodness in every bite. Just like that, the chocolate chip cookie was born. Number 17. Snap-on tools. Ever wonder why mechanics can swap out sockets faster than you can say oil change? It all started back in 1920 when Joseph Johnson and William Seidemann had a brilliant idea. These two visionaries decided to tackle a common problem in garages across America: the need for multiple wrenches of different sizes. Their solution: the 5-handle snap-on wrench set with interchangeable sockets. This simple yet ingenious invention changed the game for mechanics everywhere. Instead of fumbling through a cluttered toolbox, they could now use a single handle with various socket sizes. It was like giving mechanics a Swiss Army knife for bolts and nuts. The idea caught on like wildfire, and soon, snap-on tools became the talk of every garage and auto shop. But Johnson and Seidemann didn't stop there. They kept innovating, introducing clever gadgets like the interchangeable blade screwdriver. This commitment to making mechanics' lives easier paid off big time. Snap-on tools quickly became the go-to brand for professionals who needed reliable, high-quality tools. Number 18. Scholastic Corporation. Scholastic Corporation was established in 1920 by a young man called Maurice R. Robinson in the sewing room of his parents' house outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His idea was straightforward: produce a magazine that encapsulated the thrill of high school life. On October 22, 1920, the Western Pennsylvania Scholastic, the first publication, was released, showcasing social events and high school athletics. This 4-page magazine, which was distributed to 50 nearby high schools, was the modest start of what would grow into a major publishing and educational organization on a global scale. From these humble beginnings, Scholastic would develop into a major force in children's books and educational resources, influencing countless numbers of young readers and students. Number 19. Warner Brothers Entertainment. Ever wondered how a second-hand projector led to the creation of some of the most iconic characters in pop culture? Well, grab your popcorn, because we're about to roll the film on Warner Bros.' incredible journey. Back in 1903, 4 brothers with big dreams and a used projector started showing movies in mining towns. Little did they know, this humble beginning would spark a cinematic revolution. The Warner brothers, Harry, Albert, Sam, and Jack, weren't content with just showing films. They had their sights set on something bigger. As the Roaring Twenties kicked off, the brothers made a bold move. In 1923, they officially incorporated as Warner Brothers Pictures, ready to leave their mark on Hollywood. But the real game changer came in 1927 when they released The Jazz Singer. This wasn't just any movie. It was the first major talkie, introducing synchronized sound to the silver screen. Suddenly, silent films were out, and a new era of cinema was born. Number 20. E.W. Scripps Company. Ever wondered why your local news feels so local? Well, it all started with a $10,000 gamble back in 1878. That's when Edward Willis Scripps borrowed the money to start a newspaper in Cleveland, Ohio. But this wasn't just any old paper. Scripps had a vision of bringing affordable news to the working class. Talk about a man ahead of his time. Scripps didn't stop at just one newspaper, though. He kept expanding, snatching up more papers across the country. But here's where it gets really interesting. In 1922, the company dipped its toes into radio broadcasting. Yep, they were riding the airwaves before most people even owned a radio. As the years rolled by, E.W. Scripps Company kept growing. They didn't just stick to newspapers and radio. They jumped into television, too. Before you knew it, this little $10,000 loan had turned into a media empire that was shaping how Americans got their news.